to another special edition of Panthers on the Plus. I'm your host, Nick Carboni, and we are less than 2 weeks away from the 2026 NFL Draft. Things kick off with the first round in Pittsburgh Thursday, April 23rd at 8 o'clock, and you're going to want to be with us right here on WCNC Plus as we break down the Panthers draft strategy and then react live right there with you to the pick for the Panthers, and we'll have all sorts of analysis and expert opinions on it as well. Now, the Panthers made the playoffs this year, winning the NFC South, hosted a playoff game. Nobody's trading that in for anything, but with that comes a pick that's a little bit later than we're used to around here. Carolina slated to pick at 19th, and with a bevy of off-season moves, they've filled a lot of holes, shored a lot of things up, so that leaves a lot of possibilities with what they'll do at 19. Here to talk about it with us this week is Locked On NFL Draft host Damian Parson. Enjoy the conversation.
Damian, I know this is you're right in the thick of it right now with draft stuff. So as always, we appreciate you joining us. Last year we had you on for a Panthers top 10 pick. Well, they went ahead and stunned the world, picked Tetairoa McMillan, somebody you brought up in your segment, by the way, and then they went on to host a home playoff game. So no top 10 pick for the Panthers this year as we welcome in Damian Parson, and it is at DP_NFL on X. Damian, before we drive into the Panthers' specific draft strategy for round one, if you're a team this year sitting 15 through 20 like Carolina is, you feeling good about your board? You're not so sure about it where you're at?
I think, depending on the needs, I think you feel pretty good, right? We all know, I think the top 10 is going to be pretty defensive heavy. A lot of, a couple edge rushers, maybe get a corner or two. Got a safety in there that everybody views as a top 2, top 3 player. He's top, in terms of Caleb Downs, he's top 2 on our Locked On NFL Draft big board over on the podcast. So he's one of the best prospects in the class. If you're inside that 12 to 20 range, you feel pretty good. You feel pretty good that, hey, you know what? We're going to get a quality guy to fall to us, and we can get a guy that can be a starter, especially depending on what you need.
So, yeah, I guess that begs the question, what do the Panthers need? It doesn't seem like there's one glaring need. To me, it's like a handful of different directions that they could go. So compared to what they might be looking for and what might be there at 19, what do you think lines up the best?
Man, I think that for the Panthers in round one, the work they've done through free agency, bringing in Devin Lloyd, paying Jalen Phillips and everything, that addressed two of their top 2 biggest needs, right? Yeah. Edge and linebacker. Now you go into the draft being able to go kind of BPA in a sense and not feeling like you have to reach for a need. And I think for them, you think about Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon, getting an explosive playmaker at the tight end spot to really own the middle of the field, stretch the middle of the field vertically. And then I look at KC Concepcion as well, the wide receiver out of Texas A&M, one of my favorite receivers in this class. He's got route running. He's got a nice release package. He's a dynamic and explosive weapon. He could play the kind of Z receiver spot. He could play that slot role as well. Heck, at NC State, they had him taking handoffs like he was Deebo Samuel, and he ran it well, right? He looked like a natural running back there, but he's just a dynamic. He's what I would call instant offense, instant scoring, because also you look at what he brings to the special teams. Ask LSU. He had a 60, 70-yard punt return against them on the road, right? Like, so this young man plays with he makes plays in every phase. And I love what he brings to the table. And I think he fits what Carolina is missing, right? You have Tetairoa McMillan. Xavier Legette hasn't worked out. You have Jalen Coker, but you don't have that dynamic slot role. I know that they tried to do that with Jimmy Horn, but Jimmy Horn just, I think he's probably more role specific, maybe a special teams ace you kind of develop into that punt and kick returner for you. He could flip field position and still utilize that speed. Man, I think KC Concepcion absolutely would be a slam dunk, a home run hit for the Panthers at 19.
Okay, that would mean drafting a wide receiver 3 years in a row. There's optics with that, but do those optics matter to GM Dan Morgan if you're truly trying to improve the playmakers around Bryce Young?
100%. I think for the Panthers, I'm all about this. With NFL franchises, when you have a young quarterback, right? Bryce Young's first year or two, when he didn't play particularly well, it was a lot of blame thrown at the organization. He needs more weapons. He needs more protection. Well, last offseason, they spent a bunch of money on the interior offensive line to protect them, right? And it delved and it gave them the return on that investment was great. They had a season they got to the playoffs. They were super competitive against the Rams, nearly upsetting them, you know what I mean, and everything for the second time. I think they beat them the first time in the regular season. Yep. And almost upset them again at home, in the playoffs. So you say, okay, we've done everything you need to really put you in position to play as well as possible. I think if I'm Dan Morgan, because you got to think about it, man, quarterbacks take up a lot of cap space once you pay these guys. I have to ask myself, hey, with Bryce Young, do we have a franchise quarterback or do we have a guy that's more of a game manager type? Let's get him that one piece he's missing, right? The Jameson Williams, the John Mechie when he was at Alabama, that guy that could run good routes, that can win in the short, intermediate, and deep down the field, and take a 4-yard slant or hitch route and make something big out of it.
All right, let's continue with the pass catchers because this is our first segment. So this is first segment material for fans, right? So KC Concepcion and he's from here. That'd be a great story in itself. And then the other guy you mentioned is the other hot name when it comes to pass catchers for the Panthers, Kenyon Sadiq. This team has been looking for tight end production since Greg Olsen left the building. How does he give them that immediately?
Man, I think he gives you that in a dual role because he's such a good run blocker, and the way Dave Canales, this offense has been constructed to punch you in the mouth. And as a defense, you have to be able to take that first couple of shots, bounce off the ropes, and let's see if you got a jaw left, because that's how physical of a team the Panthers were in 2025. Well, Kenyon Sadiq automatically fits into that, right? You think about how Jatavian Sanders came with athleticism, but he didn't bring the run blocking. Well, that's the opposite. Kenyon Sadiq brings the elite athleticism and the run blocking. And then you're talking about off the play action, hitting him up the seam on go balls up the seam, 15, 20, 30-yard gains. But then also he's a flex option. When you want to go to 10 and 11 personnel and you want to put him as a big power slot, you can do those things with him as well. Kenyon Sadiq is not a finished product yet. And it's with his athleticism, 4.3 in the 40, jumping over 40 inches. He's such an explosive athlete. And there's still a lot for him to learn in terms of controlling his body and different things like that. But you see the ability to go up and make catches, right? Make big boy grabs in traffic. And I think those are the things that matter a lot when you look at this offense. Once you get in the red zone, once you get to that high 20-yard, 25, 30-yard line of the opposition, you want to have the weapons that's going to make the quarterback's job easy to convert, get closer, and score, and come out of there as one of the better scoring offenses in the league.
All right, we had dessert first, but we got to eat our veggies next. We got to talk line of scrimmage, and we got to talk day 2 and 3 of the draft. And here to do that with us is Damian Parson. So we'll have much more coming up. Back here talking Carolina Panthers draft with our guy Damian Parson from Locked On. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. So Damian, in the first segment, you think the Panthers are very much in play for a potential pass catcher in round 1 at 19. One of the other positions they may need to address soon in some way, whether it's first round or later in this draft, is offensive line. Dan Morgan has never drafted an offensive lineman. It is just his 3rd draft. Do you think there's a possibility that could happen at 19? They did just sign Walker from the Packers, and they have Taylor Moton on the right side and Ike Ekwonu hopefully coming back as soon as possible there at left tackle.
I definitely think it's in play, especially because of the Ike injury. And it really just depends on, I know a lot of Panther fans like, man, let's take a tackle at 19. And my thought process is this is a team that's still trying to solidify themselves as a true playoff contender, right? Certain teams have that luxury of draft, and even in round 1, the draft and stash, right? The Rams, when they had 2 first-round picks before they made the trade with the Chiefs, a lot of people had Ty Simpson going there at pick 29 or pick 30, whichever one it was. And it was like, you know what? The Rams are a position where they could draft a quarterback, stash him, because they're that good of a team. The Panthers, for me, you're on the cusp of becoming that, but I'd rather get an instant impact playmaker. I think day 2, now if they wanted to go round 1, and crazy enough, they never draft from this college. Blake Miller from Clemson. Clemson's right tackle, Blake Miller, he's athletic enough to play left tackle. He's powerful. He's strong. He's got long arms. And I call him an Iron Man. He started 54 consecutive games for the University of Clemson. He talked about that at the Combine. He said, man, I've seen everything that you could see from an offensive tackle position in college football. I've seen all the different alignments. I've seen all the different pressure packages, things of that nature. And his development as a pass protector really took off. It was kind of towards that middle of close to 2024, and he really had a strong season in 2025 for me. So I think that's a guy that has some round run capability. But I think day two, they could definitely find some offensive linemen. You think about Caleb Tiernan, and I talked to our guy, Brandon Thorne over at Bleach Report, and Brandon, offensive lineman guru himself, and me and him were having a conversation about Caleb out of Northwestern. He said, "Man, I truly believe he could play 4 out of the 5 positions on the offensive line." So you think about that guy that can play tackle, either tackle spot, he can play guard. I know a lot of people are like, "Well, is that necessary?" I go back to years ago. Tom Brady, Patriots, they're in New York, they're playing the Giants. Brian Stork, their center, their right tackle gets hurt. They kick him out to right tackle, and he does good enough for them to win that game. We watch the guard that was traded from Kansas City to Chicago, and he ended up having to play some left tackle. So having guys that can play multiple positions, I promise you, it is valuable because you never know who's going to get hurt at what time, right? So I think Caleb Tierney on day two, I think third round, Austin Barber out of Florida, 6'6", almost 320 pounds, strong guy. Really fits kind of the mold of how this offense runs. I definitely think there's some tackles. I think Blake Miller could end up being there in round two as well.
So back to round one and the defensive side of the ball, we know the work they did in the offseason. You brought it up first segment. They signed pass rusher Jalen Phillips. They get their middle linebacker, hopefully for the foreseeable future, in Devin Lloyd. Up front defensively, either at edge or D tackle, there's a Clemson guy in the mix there. Is that, I mean, you can never have enough, right? So do you think the Panthers would still be looking to add at 19 if the right guy's available?
Yeah, I think so. I think when you look at this defensive line right now, it's suited, especially the defensive linemen are suited to stop the run, right? Big Derek Brown being the star out of that group, he's half near unblockable with his just brute strength and physicality and high motor. But the thing that I believe this team is missing is that kind of Jalen Carter type of mold. Now, Jalen Carter types don't grow on trees. Like those guys are a little different, but I definitely think that this defense is missing that kind of three tech in those even front defensive fronts when you want to go nickel and dime packages. You got 4 defensive linemen on the field. Having that guy that can line up as a three tech defensive tackle and good line up alongside Derek Brown, and you got Jalen Phillips, and then you got Nick Scourton from last year, and you want to get the NFL is such a copycat league, Nick. We've watched 2 teams back to back, 2 defenses in the Super Bowl win with 4. Yeah. Where a lot of other teams, they're trying to all the simulated pressure, we're trying to blitz you as much as we can. No, the Eagles against Pat Mahomes 2 years ago won with 4. Right? Milton Williams went and got his bag with the Patriots and everything. Because of that, winning with 4. The Seattle Seahawks, same thing. They had a rotation of guys that they can always get to you with 4. And if they did simulate pressure you were really worried because we can't block their front 4. If they send extra guys, we're probably dead in the waters. That's what you want to make your defense overall. So I think that's the one spot that this Panthers defense is missing. I think you brought him up, Peter Woods. I think he fits that mold as that ideal kind of 3 tech. And with the way the defensive line is structured right now, you can bring him in, right? If you drafted him at 19, I know a lot of people are kind of iffy when it comes down to him. I promise you, watch the tape and realize he was 305 pounds playing 0 tech. He shouldn't. There's no reason to play him at nose. He's a 3 tech. I think he can be more of a rotational guy early on because you have the defensive lineman suited to run that odd front on rundowns for DC Evero.
All right, so we're going to have more with Damian Parson coming up. We're going to talk about the draft overall, and everybody keeps talking about Jacob Rodriguez, so I got to ask you about him and if he could wind up a Carolina Panther. So we'll be right back with Damian. All right, here with more with our friend Damian Parson from Locked On. He's going to be part of their national draft show on draft night. Kind enough to be here with us, and you can find him at DP_NFL on X. Damian, one more Panthers tidbit. The name we keep hearing around here, and it's not a first-round name, is Jacob Rodriguez. People are in love with this guy, probably in more markets than just Charlotte, but guy who has a nose for the football, guy who was here to collect the Nagurski Trophy like another former Panthers linebacker named Luke Kuechly did over a decade ago. I think that adds to the appeal. What is it with this guy that fans love Do football people feel the same? And could he wind his way up on the Carolina Panthers roster? They may have to wait a bit day 2 if they want to get him or trade up.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely think day two is where he can come off the board. 6'1" and almost 6'2", 230 pounds. Ran a 4.5 in the 40-yard dash. And if it wasn't for Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese, he would have been talked about a lot more about what he did at the combine because he was one of the stars there. The instincts are out of this world for this young man. And I think that's what made the combine so much more of a feather in the cap for Jacob Rodriguez is the fact of he plays fast with his instincts. And now you see him test well, fast, quick, explosive. And I think, adding a Devin Lloyd, you have Trevor Wallace, you adding a guy like Jacob Rodriguez could end up being the long-term green dot guy at the second level of this defense. You know what I mean? And he brings that leadership. He brings that linebacker like Luke Kuechly, like the Patrick Willises of the world and Ray Lewises of the world. Not saying he's those guys, but just from a leadership standpoint and being able to get guys lined up, right? How many times you see the Mike backer walk up to the D tackle, hey, shade over a little bit. You're in the wrong gap. Shade over. Making sure guys are lined up properly. Those back and forths, audibling with the opposing quarterback, right? How many times we've seen Peyton Manning and Tom Brady try to make the game of chess with Brian Urlacher and Luke Kuechly and Ray Lewis? Like, that stuff matters. So when I look at Jacob Rodriguez, I see a guy he tackles well, outstanding in coverage, talking about dropping it back into depth. And he's just a playmaker. He's a turnover creator. And for this defense, and how they've grown with the additions they made even last year, including what they've done this year, adding a guy like Jacob Rodriguez would be just a feather in the cap, in my opinion. You get a guy that's going to come in, be able to play all 3 downs, and also create some turnovers.
We'll see where the Panthers go round 1, but where do you just see the overall value in rounds 2 and 3?
Man, I think the overall value on rounds 2 and 3, I would say wide receiver and corner. I love this cornerback class. I've said this about both positions, wide receiver and corner. It's like walking into an ice cream shop, right? Walking into an ice cream parlor and saying, hey, do you have, and before you can finish, they say, yes, we have everything. And that's what this wide receiver and the cornerback class has. Or the wide receiver, if you want the big X receivers, you got guys like Malachi Fields and Denzel Boston. You want the shifty, explosive slot guys, right? You got the KC Concepcions. You got the Zachariah Branches of the world. You want just a deep threat, no matter what he looks like, size. You got Brendan Thompson that you can get on day 3 out of Mississippi State. Track background, tracks the ball well, separates on the vertical plane. From a cornerback standpoint, you have the guys that match up with the big X's, like a Devin Moore out of Florida, a Ephesians Prysock, Takario Davis, both guys from Washington with the Huskies, right? Like this, you have the athletic developmental corner that can play outside, like a Damani Jackson from Alabama. This cornerback class has everything you need as well. Nickel corners, everything. Safety, same thing. If the Panthers wanted to add another safety to this room and more of a true like free safety type, because a lot of defenses now are running a lot of 3 safety sets, right? The before he left, when John Harbaugh was with the Ravens, they did that, right? They were Geno Stone, Marcus Williams, and I think it was and Kyle Hamilton. They would go 3 safeties out there and let their best guy be a de facto nickel and take a linebacker off the field. So I think that you think about Genesis Smith, Bud Clark out of TCU in the safety room. I think there's a lot of depth at wide receiver, safety, and corner to where, hey, if I miss out on Dylan Thunderman and Caleb Downs, it's okay. I got some quality playmakers on days 2 and 3 that I can add to this team.
Damian, let's just hit some real quick hitters for the draft. I mean, is Fernando Mendoza the right guy for the Raiders, or is he just the guy that's obvious to pick at number 1? What do you think?
He's the right guy. High intellect, quick processor of information. I think he's going to flourish once he masters Clint Kubiak's offense, arm talent, accuracy, ball placement, and he's got the aggression to be a 3-level thrower. If he gets one-on-one, he's taking it.
Is there anybody that you're not seeing mocked in the top 10 right now that you think people are sleeping on?
Man, in terms of sleeping on, I think it's because of injuries. He just finally made his resurfacing just a week or so ago. Jamont McCoy out of Tennessee. Mm-hmm. Mansour Delane was the best cornerback on the field for this draft because he was on the field. And he's outstanding. Love Mansour Delane out of LSU. Jamal McCoy's tape from Tennessee in 2024 is outstanding. He would have been a clear, easy top 10 pick. Ball skills, instincts, and my comp for him is Quinyon Mitchell with the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think the only difference is he can play, he's more adapt to play man because Quinyon played in a primarily cover 4 quarters defense at Toledo. I remember talking to him and interviewing him at the Senior Bowl that year, and we talked about that. Where you look at McCoy, he's got quick feet, fluid hips, oily hips. He can spin and turn and rotate well, but also he's a guy that can play the cloud corner, that can play 1-2 in smash concepts and high-low. And if you read it wrong, he's going to take the ball from you. I think he's an outstanding player that should get more top 10 buzz, as long as the medicals are good. And from what I heard, there hasn't been any drawback with his medicals yet.
I can throw anything at you. So last one. The Panthers, they get the benefit of picking after some of their division rivals because they went to the playoffs this year. When Panthers fans are watching the first round of the draft and the Saints pick player X and the Bucks pick player X, who are Panthers fans going, oh no, they got that guy? Anybody come to mind in those spots?
Yes, for the Saints, it's Ruben Bain Jr. There's a lot of smoke that he potentially, because of the arm length, could slide down the board. And with the free agency situation of Cam Jordan, and not knowing whether or not he's going to return or they bring him back and everything with as productive he's been for the Saints, even if he does come back, I'm still drafting Ruben Bain Jr. And that's one of the guys that I think the Panther fans should probably, be a little worried about. Because if you watch the college football playoffs, Miami's defensive line took over every game they played. No matter if it was Ohio State, the national championship game versus Mendoza, no matter who they faced, they dominated every offensive line that they faced. And Ruben Bain Jr., I call him, he's technically he's Bane to me, literally off of when it comes down to Batman. Like he was born in the darkness and he plays like it. He's physical, he's heavy-handed. He's the type of guy that can play inside and out that you don't want chasing Bryce around for 4 quarters. That's the nightmare fuel that you don't want in New Orleans. If you're a Panther fan, when the Bucks are on the board, it's probably going to be Kenyon Sadiq for me. Yeah. You don't want the year that they started off well for the Bucks. I don't think they lost like 8 straight, right? You got it. The receiving room was injured from Godwin to Evans. Emeka Egbuka started hot. He got hurt with a hamstring midseason. I feel like none of their receivers are healthy, but they didn't have a true playmaker at tight end to alleviate some of that. The same things I said about Kenyon Sadiq, what he could bring to the Panthers with the Bucks drafting at 15 and them still having a need. They signed Cade Otton, but he's more of a, just more of a role guy. Like he gonna run block well, big body in the red zone, but he doesn't give you the twitch, the explosiveness, and the juice that a Kenyon Sadiq. And now you can come out in 12 personnel because both those guys can run block, get Bucky Irvin going again. It will kind of help complete that offense and give them the explosive element that they lost with Mike Evans going to San Fran.
All right, one more. Right now, just one name. Who do you think the Panthers are picking? You got it right last year.
Oh man, I'll say KC Concepcion. I'll say KC Concepcion is the guy I think they pick. Sleeper pick to throw out there at 19, Omar Cooper Jr. from Indiana, wide receiver out of Indiana. He's the guy that can also play that slot role. Dense physical frame, 4'4" athlete, make plays after the catch, but also can be a 3-level winner and allow Jalen Coker to play his role. Let Teteroa McMillan, let T-Mac be just the do-it-all guy that he is at all 3 levels in high possession, high volume target. But you want big splash plays from the slot, run after catch. Omar Cooper Jr. will bring that if KC Concepcion is off the board before the Panthers pick at 19.
He knows everybody's name that could be drafted. He is Damian Parson at DP_NFL. Damian, thank you very much as always, man. We appreciate you.
Always. Yes, sir.
All right. Thanks again to Dame for his wealth of knowledge about every single draft eligible player. And just from a storyteller's perspective, how awesome would it be for KC Concepcion to come to his hometown team here in Charlotte? That would require, though, 3 first-round picks spent on wide receivers, but he could be worth it. All right, until next time, I'm Nick Carboni.